I need those manifests now. Nurse, clear the area. Everybody move, move, move. To the staff at Mercy General, Lily Bennett was a liability, a silent, trembling nurse they mocked for 3 straight months because she never looked doctors in the eye. They saw her shaking hands and assumed weakness. They never imagined those same hands had once held the lives of Tier 1 operators together in the darkest valleys of Afghanistan. They laughed at the mouse, completely unaware she was a ghost legend among Navy SEALs. The laughter would die the day a Black Hawk helicopter descended into the hospital parking lot, carrying U.S. military personnel who had come to claim their combat medic back. Until then, Lily kept her head down. The fluorescent lights of St. Jude's Medical Center in Seattle hummed with that familiar headache-inducing frequency only night shift workers truly understand. It was 2 a.m., the witching hour when the caffeine fades and patience runs thin. Lily stood at the nurse's station organizing patient charts with quiet precision. She was only 32, but the gray streaks in her messy bun and the deep lines around her eyes made her look older. She moved stiffly, shoulders hunched like someone bracing for an impact that never came. "Check out the ghost," Jessica, the charge nurse, whispered with a smirk. I dropped a bedpan 5 feet from her yesterday and she flinched like a grenade went off. How did HR even clear her? She's useless. Dr. Caleb Sterling, an arrogant second-year resident, chuckled as he signed a prescription. Charity case, probably. I asked for a 16-gauge 4 during trom take and she froze for 5 seconds. In my world, 5 seconds is a lifetime. Lily heard every word. Her hearing had been trained in places where the snap of a twig could mean an ambush. But she said nothing. She simply tightened her grip on the clipboard until her knuckles turned white. She wasn't just quiet. She was deliberately invisible. She took the worst shifts, cleaned the messes others ignored, accepted blame for mistakes she didn't make. Her file from a VA hospital in Ohio was heavily redacted, and no one had cared enough to ask why. Bennett Sterling's voice cracked down the hallway like a whip. She turned slowly. "Yes, doctor. Room 402 post-op appendectomy. His blood pressure spiking. I told you to push lethal 20 minutes ago. Why is the chart empty?" "I checked his vitals," Lily said softly. "His heart rate is bradycardic. If I push Lido, it could bottom him out. I was waiting for. You were waiting." Sterling slammed his head on the counter. "You don't think you follow orders? You're the nurse, I'm the doctor." Lily lowered her eyes. "Yes, sir." She walked away under their stares. Inside the medication room, she leaned against the cool tile wall, breathing shallow. For a moment, the smell of antiseptic vanished, replaced by burning jet fuel and copper blood. A young soldier's voice echoed in her memory. "Stay with me, Doc," she snapped. The rubber band on her wrist, a grounding trick from therapy. She wasn't Doc anymore. She was just Nurse Bennett, and she needed this quiet life. But the quiet never lasts. 2 weeks later, everything changed. A massive pileup on I-5 flooded the ER. Every bed was full. Doctors shouted over alarms while the floor grew slick with Selena blood. Lily assisted Dr. Sterling in triage when a construction worker named Mike was wheeled in, conscious but gasping, clutching his chest, seatbelt bruising, Sterling said dismissively. "Chest x-ray when available, Tylenol. Move him to the hallway." "Doc, it hurts to breathe." Mike wheezed. "You broke a rib. That's how it works," Sterling snapped. "Bennett, move him." Lily unlocked the bed, then froze. She studied Mike's neck, the slight bulge of his jugular vein, the uneven rise of his chest. "Stop," she said. Sterling turned. "Excuse me, don't move him," Lily said. Her voice had changed. No tremor, no fear, just calm authority. "He's not stable. I'm the attending. Move the bed. Look at his JVD. Look at the tracheal shift starting. He's air hungry. This isn't a rib fracture. It's a developing tension pneumothorax. If you move him, he codes in 5 minutes. Dead in 7. The bay fell silent before Sterling could respond. The monitor screamed. Mike's blood pressure crashed. "He's coding," Jessica shouted. Sterling panicked. "Crash cart incubate." "No time," Lily said. And for the first time since she'd arrived at the hospital, she did ask permission. She acted. You're watching Hero Revealed, where hidden heroes and real strength come to light. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, hit like and subscribe to Hero Revealed for more powerful warrior stories every week. And tell us in the comments, what country are you watching from? Revealed are everywhere. Because sometime, the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous one to underestimate. She didn't have a scalpel. She pulled out a thick 14-gauge angio needle. She ripped Mike's gown open. "Bennett, what the hell are you doing?" Sterling shouted, reaching for her arm. Lily caught Sterling's wrist. Mida. R. Her grip was iron. She didn't even look at him. Her eyes were locked on the patient's second intercostal space. She squeezed Sterling's wrist so hard the doctor yelped and dropped to one knee. "Step back," she ordered. It wasn't a request, it was a field order. She palpated the chest wall once, twice. Thump. Without hesitation, she drove the needle into Mike's chest. H. The sound of trapped air escaping the chest cavity was audible over the chaos of the ER. It sounded like a tire deflating. Mike gasped a massive life-affirming intake of breath. The monitor immediately stabilized. The heart rate settled. The blood pressure climbed. Lily taped the needle in place, checked the pupils, and then finally let go of the breath she was holding. She turned to find the entire trauma team staring at her. Sterling was clutching his wrist, his face red with humiliation and shock. "Needle decompression," Lily said quietly, reverting instantly to her submissive posture, her shoulders slumping. "Standard protocol for that kind of thing." "Sorry, doctor. I panicked." "You panicked," Sterling whispered, standing up slowly. "You just performed an advanced surgical procedure without a license. You assaulted a doctor. You..." He looked at the patient, who was now pink and breathing comfortably. He couldn't deny she had saved the man's life, but his ego was bruised far worse than his wrist. "Get out," Sterling said, his voice trembling with rage. "Get out of my ER. You're done, Bennett. I'm going to the board. You'll never work in medicine again." "Dad," Lily nodded, staring at the floor. "Yes, doctor." She walked out of the ER, past the stunned staff. She went to the locker room, sat on the bench, and began to untie her shoes. She was fired. It was over. She would have to move again, find another small town, disappear again. She reached for her bag and her hand brushed against the old worn dog tag she kept in the inner pocket. "Lieutenant Commander S. Mitchell Degaru support. Call sign Valkyrie." She pushed them deep into the bag. "Lily Bennett," she told herself. "My name is Lily Bennett." But outside, the low thumping rhythm of rotors began to vibrate the window S of the hospital. It wasn't the usual medevac chopper. The sound was heavier, deeper, a mechanical growl that Lily knew better than the sound of her own heartbeat. She froze. She looked up at the high window in the locker room. "No," she whispered. "Not here, please. Not here." The sound grew louder, shaking the dust from the ceiling tiles. The noise was deafening. It wasn't just a sound. It was a physical pressure wave that rattled the instruments in the operating rooms on the 5th floor. In the emergency room, chaos reigned. Patients were screaming, clutching their ears. The automatic sliding doors at the ambulance bay blew open and stuck there, jammed by the sheer force of the wind. Outside in the physician's parking lot, specifically crushing Dr. Sterling's reserved spot sign, a massive shadow descended from the sky. It was an MH-60M Blackhawk, but not the standard military issue. This machine was a matte black, devoid of reflective surfaces with no identifying white stars or unit numbers painted on the fuselage. It was a ghost bird, an asset of the Joint Special Operations Command, JAR. Dr. Sterling, still fuming from the incident with Lily, stormed towards the ambulance bay doors, followed closely by M.R. Henderson, the hospital administrator, and Paul, the lone, overweight security guard. "This is insane," Sterling screamed over the roar of the rotors. "They're landing in the staff lot. That's a violation of FAA regulations. I'm going to have their licenses. Paul, get T, air badge numbers." Paul, clutching his hat, looked at Sterling like he was insane. "Doctor, that's a military chopper. I don't care who they are. They're damaging my BMW." The helicopter touched down, the landing gear groaning as it compressed under the weight. The rotors didn't spin down. They kept turning at high idle, kicking up a storm of grit, candy wrappers, and loose gravel that pelted Sterling's face. The side door of the Blackhawk slid open with a metallic clack. 4 men jumped out. They didn't look like the National Guard soldiers the hospital staff saw during flood relief. These men were bearded, their faces smeared with grease and dirt. They wore multicam trousers and t-shirts stretched tight over armor plates. Their helmets were high-cut, adorned with strobes, battery packs, and Quadlin's panoramic night vision goggles flipped up like insect eyes, and they were armed, heavily armed. Short-barreled HK-416 rifles with suppressors were slung across their chests. They moved with a predatory fluid grace. Weapons at the low ready, scanning the perimeter, not like visitors, but like they were securing a landing zone in hostile territory. "Hey," Sterling marched forward, his white coat flapping violently in the rotor wash. He held up a hand. "You cannot land here. This is a private medical facility. You are trespassing." The lead operator, a towering man with a thick red beard and a scar run, through his left eyebrow, didn't even slow down. He simply walked here. Oh, Sterling, as if the doctor were a ghost. His shoulder checked Sterling hard enough to send the doctor stumbling back into a row of shopping carts. The operator ignored him and marched straight for the automatic doors. He reached up to his radio headset. "Havoc to base. We are on deck. Securing the asset now." Mr. Henderson, the administrator, found his courage. He stepped in front of the sliding doors blocking the entrance. "Now see here. I am the administrator of this hospital. You cannot bring weapons in here. Who is in charge?" The lead operator stopped. He looked down at Henderson. His eyes were icy blue and bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. On his plate carrier, a patch read simply, "Breaker, move." Breaker said. His voice was gravel, low and dangerous. "I will call the police." Henderson squeak-ached. Breaker stepped closer, looming over the small man. "Sir, we are operating under Title 50 authority sanctioned by the National Security Council. If you do not move, my team will breach these doors and you will be detained for interfering with the federal operation. Now move." Henderson scrambled aside. The 4 operators stormed into the ER lobby. The waiting room fell silent. A crying baby stopped crying. A man with a broken arm forgot his pain. The presence of these men sucked the oxygen out of the room. They brought the smell of ozone, aviation fuel, and old sweat into the sterile environment. Sterling ran in after them, red-faced and panting. "Security, Paul, stop them. They're looking for drugs. That has to be it." Breaker stopped in the center of the triage area. He didn't look at the patients. He didn't look at the doctors. He scanned the nurse's station. "Where is she?" Breaker barked. "Jessica." The charge nurse was trembling behind the counter. "Who?" "The nurse," Breaker said, his hand resting near his sidearm, not threateningly but habitually. New hire, quiet, scars on her hands. "Where is Valkyrie?" Valkyrie," Jessica stammered. "We don't have anyone named Valkyrie. We have a Lily. Lily Bennett." Breaker looked at his team. "Clear the back. Find her. You're looking for Bennett." Sterling laughed, a hysterical high-pitched sound. "The mouse, the incompetent one. I just fired her. She's in the locker room packing her trash. You guys are here to arrest her, right? Did she kill someone at her last hospital?" "I knew it. I knew she was a fraud." Breaker turned slowly to face Sterling. The other 3 operators stopped, the hands tightening on the rifles. The air in the room grew heavy. "Clears throat. You fired her." Breaker asked softly. "Demorted." Sterling puffed out his chest. "She assaulted me. She performed an unauthorized procedure. She's unstable." Breaker walked up to Sterlinger until they were nose tons. The operator smelled of gunpowder. "If you fired her," Breaker whispered, "then you just compromised the most valuable medical asset the United States Navy possesses. And if she's left the building, Doctor, I'm going to hold you personally responsible for the death of the man in that chopper." Sterling blinked. "What?" "Check the locker room." Breaker shouted to his team. "Go." Lily had her shoes tied. Her bag was slung over her shoulder. She was walking towards the back exit of the locker room, intending to slip out the fire escape and vanish into the alleyway. "Yes." He heard the commotion outside, the shouting, the heavy boots on the Lenham. She knew the cadence. She knew the sound of those boots. "Don't turn around," she told herself. "Just keep walking. You're Lily Bennett. You're a nobody, Valkyrie." The voice echoed off the metal lockers. It was a voice she hadn't heard in 18 months, a voice she had tried to drown out with therapy and medication. Lily froze. Her hand hovered over the push bar of the exit door. "Don't make me chase you, Lily," the voice said. It was softer now, pleading. Lily slowly turned around. Standing in the doorway of the locker room was Commander Jack Breaker Hayes. He looked older than she remembered, more gray in the beard, darker circles under the eyes, but he was still the mountain of a man who had carried her out of the Zagros Mountains when she took shrapnel to the leg. "I'm not her anymore, Jack," Lily said, her voice shaking. "I'm retired. I'm out. I signed the papers. There is no out for people like us, Lily," Jack said, stepping into the room. He left his rifle with his team in the hall. He approached her with open hands. "You know that I can too," Lily whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I can't lose another one. I can't have that blood on me again. I'm just a nurse now. I hand out Tylenol. I get yelled at by residents. It's peaceful." "Peaceful?" Jack scoffed gently. "I saw you in the hall. You look like a caged animal." "You're dying here, Lily. slowly. We both know it. Why are you here, Jack? Lily asked, hardening her expression. You didn't land a bird in a civilian hospital parking lot just to say hi. Jack's face fell. The tough warrior mask slipped, revealing a terrified friend. It's Tex. Lily felt the blood drain from her face. Tex, we were on a training op up near the border. Life fire. Something went wrong with the breach. A ricochet or a malfunction. I don't know. Jack swallowed hard. He took a hit. Lily neck just above the clavicle. It clipped the artery. We have a field dressing on it, but he's bleeding out. We couldn't make it to the base. This was the closest level 1 trauma center. So, bring him to the ER, Lily shouted. Sterling is an idiot, but the trauma team here is capable. They have surgeons. They can't touch him, Jack said grimly. What? Why? Because the round that hit him. Jack hesitated. It's experimental ordnance. It's a prototype fragmenting round. It's lodged against the spine. If a civilian surgeon tries to pull it out the way they learned in med school, it'll detonate or it'll shred the spinal cord. They don't know the ballistics. Lily, you do. You helped design the protocol for field extraction of UXO unexploded ordnance in bodies. You are the only one who has ever done it and kept the patient alive. Lily leaned against the locker, breathing hard. Jack, I haven't held a scalpel in a year. My hands, they shake. Jack reached out and took her hands. He held them up. They were trembling slightly. They shake because you're holding back, Jack said intensely. They shake because you're a racehorse pulling a milk cart. Look at me. She looked up. Tex is dying. He has maybe 10 minutes. He's in the bird. He's asking for you. He didn't want us to land. He said don't drag her back in. But I couldn't let him go. I need you, Lily. I need the ghost. Lily looked at her hands. She looked at the cheap scrubs she was wearing. She thought about Dr. Sterling's sneer. She thought about the silence she had cultivated. Then she thought about Tex, the kid from Oklahoma who played the harmonic around the fire, the kid who had saved her life in Syria. Lily closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. She pictured the internal anatomy of the neck, the carotid sheath, the brachial plexus, the spinous process. When she opened her eyes, the tears were gone. The fear was gone. The mouse was dead. She reached into her locker and grabbed a pair of trauma shears, shoving them into her waistband. She ripped the hair tie out of her hair, tightening the bun until it pulled her skin taut. Where is he? Lily asked. Her voice was cold steel. Back of the bird, Jack said, a grin breaking through his beard. Get him into Trauma Bay 1 now, Lily commanded, marching past him. I need 6 units of Ouija unwarmed. I need the vascular tray, the thorectomy kit, and I need a magnet. A powerful one. A magnet? Jack asked, jogging to keep up. The round is magnetic triggered, Lily said, pushing open the locker room doors. If we use steel tools near it, it blows. I need the titanium set. Does this hospital have an MRI suite? I think so. Get your boys to rate it. I need non-furious instruments. Go. They burst back into the hallway. Dr. Sterling was still standing there, ranting to the police on his cell phone. Yes, they have guns. They are threatening me, Sterling shouted into the phone. He looked up and saw Lily marching down the hall, flanked by the massive form of Breaker. You, Sterling pointed at her. I told you to leave. Security escort her out. Lily didn't slow down. She walked straight up to Sterling. Get out of my way, Caleb. She said, Excuse me. I am the attending. Lily didn't stop. She placed a hand on his chest and shoved him. It wasn't a polite push. It was a tactical strike to the sternum. Sterling flew backward, tripping over his own feet and landing hard on his backside. I am commandeering Trauma Bay 1, Lily announced to the stunned ER staff. Her voice boomed, projecting with the authority of an officer. I have a code black surgical emergency incoming. Jessica, get the blood bank on the line. Tell them if I don't have 6 units of OAG in 2 minutes, I will purse down there and drain it from their veins. Yes, Lily, Jessica squeaked, grabbing the phone immediately. It's not Lily, Breaker yelled as he ran towards the exit to get his teammate. It's Lieutenant Commander Mitchell, and you will follow her orders, or you will answer to the United States Navy. The ER doors blew open again. 2 SEALs rushed in, carrying a stretcher between them. On it lay a young man, pale as a sheet, covered in blood-soaked combat gear, a distinct terrifying hole in his neck. Lily looked at the patient. She looked at the wound. Gloves, she snapped, holding out her hands without looking. A nurse she had never spoken to slapped a pair of sterile gloves into her hands. Lily snapped them on. Let's go to work. Trauma Bay 1 had transformed from a sterile medical suite into a forward operating base. The SEALs breaker and a quiet sniper named Ghost stood guard at the double doors, weapons held across their chests, effectively barricading the room from the rest of the hospital. Inside, the air was thick with the copper smell of blood and the sharp tang of isopropyl alcohol. Tex lay on the table, stripped to the waist. His skin was the color of ash, a stark contrast to the dark crimson pooling under his neck. BP is 70/40, Jessica shouted, her voice trembling. She had stayed, despite Dr. Sterling's orders to evacuate. The head charge nurse had refused to leave Lily's side. He's in hypomic shock, Lily. We're losing him. Pressure's running. Why? D-open. Lily commanded, her eyes locked on the jagged entry wound just above Tex's right clavicle. Hang the second bag of Oneg. I need his pressure up to at least 90 systolic before I go digging, or his heart will empty before I can clamp the bleeder. The doors burst open, or tried to. They slammed into Breaker's back. Open this door. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Dr. Sterling's muffled voice screamed from the hallway. I have the chief of medicine on the phone. Bennett, you are trespassing. You are practicing without a license. Breaker didn't budge. He looked through the small glass window of the door, his face a mask of stone, and simply locked the deadbolt. Ignore him, Lily said, her voice eerily calm. She held out her hand. MRI kit. A terrified radiology tech, a young man named Dave, stepped forward. He held a tray of plastic and titanium instruments, tools usually reserved for surgeries within the magnetic field of the MRI machine. They were blunt, clumsy, and harder to use than steel, but they were non-magnetic. I have brought everything we had, Dave stammered. Good job, Dave, Lily said softly. Now step back behind the lead shield. She picked up a pair of titanium forceps. She took a breath. The room fell silent, save for the rhythmic whoosh click of the ventilator and the frantic beep 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 of the cardiac monitor. Lily looked at the wound. The experimental round, a smart frag, was designed to detonate upon sensing the magnetic signature of a vehicle engine, or the specific density of engine block metal, but it had malfunctioned. It was lodged dangerously close to the carotid artery, pressing again the bundle of nerves that controlled the arm and diaphragm. Jack, Lily said without looking up, I need you to hold his head. Don't let him move a millimeter. If he coughs, if he flinches, this thing could shift. If it shifts, it detonates. If it detonates, everyone in this room dies, Jessica gasped. It's live. It's very live, Lily said. Jack traction. Breaker stepped up to the head of the bed. He placed his massive gloved hands on Tex's temples. He looked down at his teammate, then up at Lily. I trust you, Val. Bring him home. Lily lowered the forceps. Her hands, the hands that everyone mocked for trembling while holding a coffee cup, were now perfectly supernaturally still. It was as if the adrenaline had cauterized her anxiety. She was no longer the mouse. She was the machine. She inserted the forceps into the wound tract. I can feel the casing, she whispered. It's jagged. It's wrapped in the fascia. Texas's heart rate spiked to 140. He's feeling it, Lily murmured. Anesthesia isn't deep enough. Push another 50 of rock and 100% of fentanyl. Pushing. Jessica said Lily worked with microscopic precision. She couldn't use suction because the metal tip of the suction catheter might trigger the fuse. She had to use gauze sponges to clear the field, dabbing blindly at the blood welling up from the tear in the jugular vein. E-hole of the bleeder, she said. It's a partial transection of the internal jugular. I'm going to clamp it now. She clamped the vein with a plastic host. The bleeding slowed. Okay. Lily exhaled. Now for the hardware. She went deeper. The tip of the forceps brushed against something hard. A faint, high-pitched whine emitted from the wound. Everyone froze. What is that? Dave whispered from behind the lead shield. Capacitor charge breaker said, sweat dripping down his nose. It's waking up. Don't move, Lily hissed. The whine grew higher in pitch. The round was sensing the disturbance. It was calculating whether to explode. Lily closed her eyes for a split second, visualizing the schematic of the MK for smart frag she had studied years ago during an end-of-day briefing. It had a 3-second delay once the anti-temper circuit was tripped. I have to pull it, Lily said. Now if I go slow, it blows. If I yank it, I might tear the artery. Your call, Valkyrie, breaker said on 3. Lily said she adjusted her grip on the forceps. She dug her heels into the floor. 1. The whine was a scream now. 2. Sterling was pounding on the glass of the door outside, oblivious to the fact that he was trying to break into a blast zone. 3. Lily pulled. It wasn't a yank, but a smooth, powerful extraction with a wet shuck sound. A small cylindrical object covered in blood and gore came free. The whine stopped. Lily didn't celebrate. She turned and gently placed the device into a nemesis basin filled with saline that Dave was holding. "Dave, run!" Lily shouted. "Take that basin to the loading dock. Throw it as far as you can into the vacant lot. Go." Dave didn't ask questions. He grabbed the basin and sprinted out the back door of the trauma bay, kicking it open and disappearing into the hallway. Brr. Eaker watched him go, then looked back at Lily. "Clear?" "Not yet," Lily said, dropping the plastic tools and grabbing a standard steel needle driver from the crash cart. "Now I have to sew his neck back together before he bleeds out. Give me 4 Proline now." 10 seconds later, a dull thumping boom shook the hospital. Car alarms began to wail in the distance. The shockwave rattled the cabinets in the trauma bay. David made the throw. Dr. Sterling stopped pounding on the door. The silence in the hallway was absolute. Inside, Lily didn't even flinch. She was throwing stitches, her hands moving in a blur of motion. Time knots, closing layers, sealing the vessel. "BP rising," Jessica said, her voice filled with awe. 100% over 60 sinus rhythm. "He's stabilizing." Lily placed the final stitch. She cut the thread. She placed a sterile dressing over the wound and taped it down. She stripped off her bloody gloves and dropped them on the floor. She looked at Breaker. "He's going to make it," she said. And then the adrenaline dumped. Her knees buckled. Breaker caught her before she hit the floor, holding her up by her scrub top. "Easy, Doc," he smiled. "You did good." The doors to Trauma Bay 1 were Fina. LLI unlocked. It wasn't just Dr. Sterling waiting outside anymore. The hospital's CEO, Mr. Henderson, was there. The chief of medicine, Dr. Aries Thorne, had arrived. 2 police officers stood with hands on their holsters, and behind them, a gaggle of nurses, ORIs, and patients craned their necks to see what had happened. Lily walked out first, wiping blood from her forehead with the back of her arm. Breaker was a step behind her, his rifle slung, looking like a bodyguard for a head of saint. 8. "Arrest her," Sterling shouted, pointing a shaking finger at Lily. She stole medical supplies. She endangered the hospital. She set off an explosion in the parking lot. "Officer, take her into custody." The police officers stepped forward looking uncertain. They looked at the massive Navy SEAL standing behind the petite nurse. They looked at the smoke rising from the vacant lot outside the window. "Miss Bennett," one officer asked. "We need to ask you some questions. She's not saying a word." Breaker rumbled. "This is a civilian matter." Henderson, the administrator, squeak-ached. "She is an employee of St. Judas, and she has violated every protocol in the handbook. She is fired, effective immediately, and we will be pressing charges for reckless endangerment." "Reckless." The voice came from the trauma bay. The crowd parted. Text. The patient was sitting up on the gurney. He was pale, shirtless, and covered in bandages, but he was awake. He swung his legs over the side of the bed. Tex, steady. "Own," Lily ordered, turning back. "I'm good, Val." Tex rasped. His voice growled from the intubation. He stood up, swaying slightly. "I just heard someone call the best combat medic in the Northern Hemisphere reckless. Had to see who the idiot was." Tex walked, stumbled really to the doorway. He leaned against the frame looking at Sterling and Henderson. "Do you know who you're talking to?" Tex asked. "She's a nurse," Sterling spat. "A quiet, incompetent nurse." "Who?" "Quiet." Tex laughed. It was a dry, painful sound. "Yeah, she's quiet. You get quiet when you spend 2 days lying in a ditch in Syria, keeping pressure on a femoral artery with one hand and returning fire with the other. You get quiet when you have to choose which of your friends lives and which one dies because you only have 1 bag of plasma left." The hallway was dead silent. Even the ambient noise of the ER seemed to fade. "Lily Bennett," Text said, pointing at her as a cover name. "That woman is Lieutenant Commander Lily Mitchell, call sign Valkyrie. She was the lead medical officer attached to DevGru Red Squadron for 3 years. She has a silver star. She has 2 purple hearts. She didn't get those scars on her hands from dropping dead pants. She got them pulling my ass out of a burning fuselage in Kandahar." Dr. Sterling's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked at Lily. He looked at the woman he had bared, mocked, and bullied for months. The woman he had called a mouse. Lily stood there, her posture straight for the F-Iris time in months. She didn't look down. She looked Sterling right in the eye. Is this true? Dr. Thorne, the chief of medicine, asked, stepping forward. He was an older man, a former army surgeon himself. He looked at Lily with a sudden dawning recognition. Mitchell, I read the report. The Pescia province ambush. That was you? Lily nodded once. Yes, sir. My God, Thorne whispered. You performed a thoracotomy in the back of a moving Chinook under RPG fire. They use your case study in the trauma curriculum. Dr. Thorne turned to Sterling. The look of disgust on the chief's face was withering. Dr. Sterling, you told me this morning that Nurse Bennett was clinically inept and slow at it. You attempted to prevent a life-saving surgery on a Tier 1 operator because of what protocol she didn't follow the chain of command. Sterling stammered, shrinking under the chief's glare. She is the chain of command, Breaker interjected. In a trauma scenario, her authority supersedes yours, supersedes mine. Hell, if the president was bleeding out, she'd supersede him. Breaker reached into his pocket and pulled out a satellite phone. He hit a button and put it on speaker. This is Admiral Hola, JC Command. A voice boomed from the tiny speaker. Put Commander Hayes on. I'm here, Admiral, Breaker said. Target secured, assets stabilized. But we have a situation with the LOCOM administration. Put them on. The Admiral barked. Breaker shoved the phone at Mr. Henderson. The administrator took it with trembling hands. Huh? Hello? Listen to me closely. The Admiral's voice sliced through the air. The woman standing in front of you is a protected national asset. You are currently impeding a military operation if you do not stand down, and if you press one single charge against Commander Mitchell, I will have your hospital's federal funding pulled so fast the lights will go out before you hang up this phone. Do I make myself clear? Crystal clear. Admiral Henderson squeaked. No charges. Absolutely not. Good. Put Mitchell on. Lily took the phone. She held it to her ear. Admiral Lily. The Admiral's voice softened. We need you back. You can't hide in a civilian ER forever. You're a healer, but you're a warrior first. The team is rotating back to the sandbox in 48 hours. There's an empty seat on the Bird. It's yours if you want it. Lily looked around the ER. She saw the awe in Jessica's eyes. She saw the fear in Sterling's eyes. She saw the sterile white walls that had felt like a prison for the last year. She looked at Tex alive and breathing because of what she did. She looked at Breaker. He, our brother in arms. She looked down at her hands. They weren't shaking. Lily started but paused. She looked at Dr. Sterling one last time. Dr. Sterling, Lily said calmly regarding the patient in room 402 from 2 weeks ago. You were right. I didn't push the lethal. Sterling blinked. What? I didn't push it because he was allergic to beta blockers. It was in his file. If I had a fool, load your order, I would have killed him. I clears throat. Fixed your mistake just like I fixed this one. She handed the phone back to Breaker. Admiral, she said loud enough for the phone to pick up. I'm not coming back to the teams. Breaker looked shocked. Lily, I'm not coming back, Lily repeated. A small sad smile playing on her lips. But I'm not staying here either. You're not coming back? Breaker asked, the satellite phone still in his hand. The Mass's SEAL looked confused, a rare expression for a man who made a living out of certainty. But you just proved you still have it. You're the best there is. Lily took a deep breath. She looked around the emergency room, the place where she had hidden for months, the place where she had tried to bury the ghost of Valkyrie under mountains of paperwork and submissive nods. I have the skills, Jack, Lily said, her voice steady and echoing slightly in the silent hallway, but I don't have the hunger. Not for the fight. Not anymore. She walked over to Tex, who was leaning heavily against the doorframe, a lopsided grin on his pale face. She adjusted the bandage on his neck with a gentle professional touch. The war needs fighters, Lily continued, looking at her old teammates. But the fighters need teachers. I'm tired of patching up holes in boys who didn't have been there in the first place. I'm tired of losing friends. She turned to the phone, which Breaker was still holding. Admiral, I'm listening. Commander, the ADM's voice crackled. I won't deploy, Lily said firmly. My days in the sandbox are done. But you have a backlog of 300 combat medic candidates at the Naval Special Warfare Center who are learning outdated protocols. They're learning from books written 10 years ago. They need someone who knows what modern ballistics do to a human body. There was a pause on the line. You want to become an instructor? I want to be the lead instructor for the Special Operations Combat Medic course. Lily corrected him. I want full autonomy over the curriculum, and I want my commission reinstated but strictly state site. I'll teach them how to keep your boys alive so I don't have to do it myself. Done, the Admiral said instantly. Report to Coronado on Monday. Welcome home, Valkyrie. Breaker grinned, clapping a heavy hand on Lily's shoulder. Instructor Mitchell, God help those recruits, you're going to eat them alive, only the weak ones. Lily smiled. She turned back to the hospital staff. The dynamic had shifted permanently. She was no longer the subordinate. She was the highest-ranking officer in the room. She walked up to Jessica. The charge nurse flinched slightly, but Lily reached out and took her hand. You stayed, Lily said softly. When Sterling ran, you stayed. You passed the meds, you held the line. You're a good nurse, Jess. Don't let anyone like him. She jerked her head towards Sterling. Convince you otherwise. Jessica tired up, nodding. Thank you, Lily. I mean, Commander Lily is fine. Finally, Lily turned to Dr. Caleb Sturl. The young doctor was leaning against the wall, looking like a deflated balloon. His ego had been punctured, his authority shattered, and his prejudice exposed. He couldn't eat her eyes. Dr. Sterling, Lily said. He looked up, flinching. You have good hands, Lily said. Mechanically, you are a decent surgeon. But medicine isn't about mechanics, it's about humility. You almost killed a man today because you couldn't admit that a nurse might know something you didn't. You treat titles, not patients. She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. I'm leaving. You'll keep your job, you'll keep your parking spot. But every time you walk into a trauma bay, every time you scream at a new nurse for being too slow or too quiet, I want you to remember today. I want you to remember that the person you're yelling at might jet be the only thing standing between your patient and a body bag. Be better, Caleb, or get out of the way. She didn't wait for an answer. She turned on her heel. Let's go, she said to the SEALs. We can give you a lift, Breaker said, gesturing to the exit. Beats taking the bus. Lily laughed. Yeah, I guess one last ride won't hurt. The group moved towards the exit. Lily Bennett, the Mouse of Mercy General, walked out the automatic doors, flanked by 4 of the deadliest men on the planet. Outside, the Blackhawk's rotors began to spin up again, the whine of the engines growing into a roar. The wind whipped Lily's hair, pulling strands loose from her bun. She didn't fix it. She climbed into the cabin, sitting next to Text as the helicopter lifted off, blowing dust and debris over Dr. Sterling's BMW one last time. Lily looked down through the window. She saw the hospital shrinking below her. She saw the small, petty world she was leaving behind. She wasn't running away this time. She was moving forward. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the dog tags she had hidden for so long, and placed them around her neck. The cold metal felt heavy against her skin. It felt right. The mouse was dead. Valkyrie was back, and she had work to do. 6 months later, the lecture hall at the Naval Amphibious Base in Coronado was stiflingly hot. 50 young candidates, Navy corpsmen, Army medics, Air Force PJs, sat in rigid silence. They were exhausted, muddy, and terrified. The door at the front of the room opened. Lieutenant Commander Lily Mitchell walked in. She wore crisp Navy working fatigues, a silver oak leaf insignia shining on her collar. She walked with a confident stride, carrying a single laser pointer. She stopped at the podium and scanned the room. Her eyes were sharp. She waited until the silence was absolute. My name is Commander Mitchell, she said, her voice reaching the back of the room without a microphone. Most of you think you're here to learn how to apply a Tori. You're wrong. You can teach a monkey to apply a Tori. She clicked the remote. The screen behind her exploded to life. Chaotic helmet cam footage of an ambush. Dust filled the air. Gunfire cracked. Men screamed over the roar of rotors. You're here to learn how to think when the world is ending. Lily continued. You're here to keep your hands steady when your heart is pounding at 200 beats per minute. I am going to teach you how to cheat death. She stepped away from the podium and walked slowly down the center aisle, locking eyes with each recruit she passed. Some sat frozen. Others tried to hide their nerves behind forced confidence. Some of you have heard stories about me, she said. You've heard I'm a ghost. You've heard I'm hard. She stopped in front of a young recruit whose hands trembled slightly on his desk. She glanced at his shaking fingers, then looked up into his eyes and gave him a small, genuine smile. They're right, she whispered. But stick with me, and I'll make you unbreakable. Lily turned back toward the screen. Lights out, she ordered. Let's begin. Lily Bennett walked into that hospital as a ghost, hiding from her past. She walked out the legend, reminding everyone that true strength doesn't need to shout to be heard. Dr. Sterling learned the hard way that you should never judge a book by its cover, especially when that book is a highly classified manual on combat trauma. Lily didn't just save a Navy SEAL that day. She saved herself by choosing to teach. She found a new mission, preparing the next generation of warriors to survive the worst days of their lives. You're watching Ward of Warriors, where courage, sacrifice, and hidden heroes come to light. Now, I want to hear from you. If you were in Dr. Sterling's position, would you have listened to the nurse sooner, or is hospital hierarchy too powerful to question? And do you think Lily made the right choice by becoming a trainer instead of returning to the battlefield? Tell me what you think, and don't forget to comment your country, so we can see where our revealed are watching from. If you enjoyed this story of justice, redemption, quiet strength, hit that like button. It really clears throat, helps the channel grow. And make sure you subscribe to Hero Revia, LED, and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. We bring you powerful warrior stories every week. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay strong,